Your AC might not be broken, not weak, not outdated, and probably not undersized. But your house still feels hot. Especially upstairs. Especially late at night. One room feels normal. Another feels impossible to cool. The AC runs constantly, but somehow, the heat never really leaves. And that's where most people make a mistake. They blame the machine, the thermostat, the vents, the filters. Sometimes they even replace the entire system. Thousands of dollars. New unit. New installation. Same heat. Because the real problem was never the AC. It was sitting above your ceiling the entire time. Your attic. Now here's what most homeowners never realize. During summer, your attic becomes one of the hottest places on your entire property. Not warm. Not uncomfortable. Dangerously hot. On a 90-degree day, most attics reach 130, 140, even 150 degrees. That's hotter than many ovens. And all of that heat sits directly above your living space. Hour after hour. Radiating downward. Into your ceiling. Into your walls. Into your rooms. Your AC isn't cooling the house anymore. It's fighting the roof. And roofs don't stop heating when the sun goes down. That's the part almost nobody understands. Because your attic stores heat. Like a giant thermal battery. All day long, sunlight pounds the roof. The shingles absorb it. The attic traps it. And by evening, when you're finally trying to relax, your house starts releasing everything it absorbed during the day. That's why bedrooms stay hot at night. Not because the AC failed. Because the attic is still cooking above you. Now here's where this gets interesting. Decades ago, before modern air conditioning became common, builders already understood this problem. They knew trapped attic heat could make homes unbearable. So they built houses differently. They focused on airflow, ventilation, shade, heat escape, because trapped heat is the real enemy, not outdoor temperature itself. And one forgotten method made an enormous difference. Passive attic ventilation. Not giant machines. Not expensive cooling systems. Simple airflow. Because heat behaves in a predictable way. It rises. And when hot air gets trapped inside an attic, pressure builds. Temperature climbs. The entire ceiling turns into a radiator. But once that heat has somewhere to escape, everything changes. Attic temperatures begin dropping. Ceilings cool down. Rooms stabilize. And suddenly, the AC doesn't have to work nearly as hard anymore. Now imagine this. Two identical homes. Same weather. Same neighborhood. Same roof color. Same insulation. Same AC system. But one attic traps heat, and the other releases it. The difference inside feels dramatic. Not because one air conditioner is stronger. Because one house is holding heat, and the other isn't. Now here's the scary part. A huge number of attics barely breathe at all. Especially older homes. Hot air enters, but never properly escapes. And over time, the attic becomes a giant heat chamber. You feel it upstairs first. Rooms become uneven. The AC runs constantly. Energy bills climb. And homeowners think they need more cooling, when what they actually need is less trapped heat. Now modern solutions usually skip this completely. They jump straight to expensive upgrades. New HVAC systems. Smart thermostats. Duct replacements. Whole home cooling packages. Because those are profitable. But older builders, the ones who understood passive cooling, focused on heat movement first. Because if heat escapes naturally, the entire house becomes easier to cool. Now here's how this actually works. Your attic needs intake and exhaust. Cooler outside air enters through lower vents, usually near the roof edges. Then hot air rises and exits through upper vents near the roof peak. That airflow cycle matters more than most people realize. Because trapped heat spreads. Escaped heat disappears. That's the difference. Now imagine what happens when airflow doesn't exist. Every hour of sunlight adds more heat. The attic gets hotter. The wood gets hotter. The insulation gets hotter. The ceiling gets hotter. And eventually, your rooms start absorbing that heat continuously. even after sunset. That's why some homes feel hottest during the evening, not midday. Because stored heat is finally radiating downward. Your house becomes its own heater. Now here's the part HVAC companies rarely mention first. An oversized AC system often makes the problem worse. Because bigger systems cool air quickly, but don't solve the actual heat buildup above the ceiling. So the AC cycles on and off repeatedly, while the attic keeps pumping heat back into the house. That's why some rooms cool temporarily, then heat right back up again. The source never changed. Now here's something researchers discovered years ago. Roof surfaces under direct sunlight can exceed 160 degrees during summer, especially dark shingles. Black roofs absorb enormous amounts of solar energy, and once that heat enters the attic, it spreads everywhere. Researchers using thermal cameras found ceiling temperatures dramatically higher in homes with poorly ventilated attics. Some ceilings became warm enough to physically radiate heat downward into bedrooms. That's why upstairs spaces often feel heavier, stale, hotter. The ceiling itself is warm. Now here's where old architecture becomes fascinating. Before air conditioning existed, homes in hot climates were designed to release heat naturally. Tall ceilings, attic vents, cross ventilation, shaded roofs, cupolas, whole house ventilation towers. Because old builders understood something modern construction often ignores. Heat must escape. If it doesn't, the house fights itself. And once cheap electricity became common, that knowledge slowly disappeared. Because machines replaced design. Why solve heat naturally when you can just sell more cooling? Now think about this. The average homeowner checks their thermostat constantly, but almost never checks the attic. Meanwhile, the actual heat source keeps building overhead every single afternoon. Quietly, relentlessly. Now let's talk about insulation for a second. Because insulation matters. But here's the misunderstanding. Insulation slows heat transfer. It does not remove heat. So if your attic becomes extremely hot, that trapped heat still builds pressure above the ceiling for hours. Especially during long summer days. That's why airflow matters so much. Ventilation removes heat before it spreads. Now imagine reducing attic temperatures by even 20 degrees. Your ceilings cool down. Your rooms stabilize faster. The AC cycles less often. Energy use drops. And suddenly, the house starts feeling normal again. Not freezing. Not struggling. Just balanced. Now here's another hidden problem. Many attic vents become blocked over time. Insulation. Birdnest. Debris. Sometimes airflow systems stop functioning almost completely, and homeowners never realize it. The attic slowly overheats for years, and every summer feels worse than the last. Now here's the really frustrating part. People spend thousands trying to solve symptoms. Portable AC units, extra fans, window units, thermostat replacements, smart cooling systems. Meanwhile, the real issue is still trapped above them. Now here's something most people never think about. Your attic also affects humidity, because trapped heat changes how moisture behaves inside the house. Warm attic air can create condensation problems, especially when cool indoor air meets overheated surfaces. That moisture can slowly damage insulation, wood framing, even drywall over time. So the attic doesn't just affect comfort, it affects the entire structure. Now imagine living through summer with an attic that never cools properly. Every day, the heat builds again. The roof absorbs more sunlight. The attic stores more energy. And the AC works harder trying to fight a problem that keeps regenerating above the ceiling. That's why some homes feel exhausting during summer. Not just hot, heavy. Because the structure itself is radiating warmth back into the living space. Now here's where things become even more interesting. Some older homes actually stay cooler than newer homes during extreme heat. Not because they have better AC systems. Because they were designed for airflow. Builders understood wind direction, heat release, natural ventilation. Before modern cooling existed, architecture itself was part of climate control. Now most homes depend almost entirely on mechanical cooling. And once airflow design disappeared, attic heat became a hidden monster inside millions of houses. Now think about your own home. Have you ever noticed? Upstairs hotter than downstairs? Rooms cooling unevenly? AC running nonstop? High electric bills during summer? Bedrooms staying warm late into the night? That's usually not random. That's trapped thermal energy. Now here's something utility companies understand very well. Peak electricity demand usually happens during extreme summer afternoons and evenings. Exactly when overheated attics are radiating the most heat downward. That means millions of homes are simultaneously fighting stored roof heat every single evening. And every extra degree inside the house pushes cooling systems harder. Longer runtimes. Higher bills. More energy consumption. Now imagine reducing that heat before it spreads through the structure. That changes everything. And here's the crazy part. A huge number of homeowners never realize how extreme attic temperatures really are until they physically go up there during summer. The air feels suffocating, heavy, oppressive, almost difficult to breathe. That heat doesn't stay trapped forever. Eventually, it moves downward, into the living space. Now here's where radiant barriers become interesting. Some older passive cooling systems used reflective materials beneath roof structures to bounce radiant heat away before it spread through the attic. Because stopping heat before absorption is far more effective than removing it afterward. Old builders understood this. Modern systems often ignore it. Because passive cooling doesn't generate recurring monthly revenue. Now think about how strange this really is. Human beings figured out passive cooling centuries ago. Long before electricity. Long before compressors. Long before smart thermostats. But somehow, modern homeowners became completely dependent on machines to solve problems architecture used to prevent naturally. And every summer, the cycle repeats. Higher temperatures. Higher bills. More AC usage. More frustration. Meanwhile, the attic keeps silently collecting heat above everything. Now here's another thing people rarely realize. At night, poorly ventilated attics release stored heat slowly. That means your AC often works hardest when the sun is already gone. Because the roof already absorbed the energy hours earlier. And now your home is paying the price after dark. That's why sleep feels uncomfortable in overheated homes. The ceiling itself radiates warmth downward while you're trying to cool the room. Now imagine instead, a house where attic heat escapes continuously throughout the day. Less buildup, less trapped energy, less radiant heat after sunset. Everything feels lighter, balanced, stable. That's not magic. That's thermal management. Now to be clear, not every cooling issue comes from the attic. Bad insulation matters. Old ductwork matters. Humidity matters. Sun-facing windows matter. Poor seals matter. Old AC systems matter. But attic heat? That's one of the biggest hidden causes of uncomfortable homes. Especially upstairs. And once you understand that, everything starts making sense. Why the AC runs nonstop. Why evenings feel unbearable. Why upstairs stays hot. Why some rooms never stabilize. Because the house itself is storing heat. And your AC is trying to fight that storage every single day. Now here's the truth most homeowners never hear. Cooling a house isn't only about adding cold air. It's about removing trapped heat. That's the real battle. And once trapped heat finally has somewhere to go, everything changes. Your airflow, your comfort, your energy bill, even your sleep. Because sometimes, the problem isn't the machine working too little. It's the house holding too much heat. And once that trapped heat escapes, the AC stops fighting alone. And the entire house finally cools the way it was always supposed to.